Hello and welcome to my studio where I've been playing with a few of the kaleidoscopes in my collection. Welcome to my very first recorded online class as well. This class is all about creating a kaleidoscope. It's based on a workshop that I did about a week or so ago for Magpie's Nest Community Art Group. And that activity was based on one of the things that I often do in a live in-person class that I teach called So You Think You Can't Make Art. And I thought that it would be a great subject to practice my online course creation skills. So I'm really happy that you've taken the chance and have signed up for this class. There's a series of 3 videos. Underneath each video in the description box, you'll find the list of supplies that you need. It's really minimal. You really only need the most simple tools to create this beautiful shape. All you need is a few round circular objects that you can trace around, a pencil, a pen, some scissors, and if you want to color it in, coloring tools of your choice. In this particular video, I just used inexpensive children's felt pens or markers because you don't need all kinds of fancy, expensive tools to create something very, very beautiful. And I hope you really enjoy it. All right, let's get started, shall we? We're going to create the underlying construction drawing. So the first thing that you need to do is gather 3 round objects that you can use to trace circles. The biggest circle should fit comfortably on your white sheet of paper. I'm going to be using a permanent marker so that you can see what I'm doing, but you should do this part, trace these lines lightly in pencil so you can erase them later. These are lines that are not going to be part of our finished design, but they will let us create the finished design. And now after you've drawn your large circle on your white sheet of paper, you'll draw that same circle on a sheet of scrap paper, and then you'll draw 2 smaller circles, so a medium-sized circle and a small circle on that same on a piece of scrap paper. And then after you've drawn those, and they don't have to be beautiful, these don't have to be beautiful, we're just going to be using them to create our structure. They're not going to be part of the finished drawing. And now when you finish tracing those 3 circles, cut them all out. And I have to tell you that I am a remedial scissor cutter. It's something that I've struggled with my whole life. As a left-handed person, I have a hard time cutting with any scissors, even left-handed scissors. Once you've cut out your 3 circles, you're going to fold each of them in half, and the more accurately you do this, the better the results will be, but don't stress over it. This is something that I'm not great at. Accuracy is definitely not my strong suit. So you're going to fold each of the circles in half, and then you're going to fold them in half again. What you end up with is each of the circles divided into quarters. Now once you've finished folding your 3 circles, we're going to take the large circle, we're going to place that on your white paper so that the arc, the curve off the quarter lines up with the circle that you've drawn on the white paper. And we're going to find the center point. That little point in the middle, that is the center of your circle. I've moved it around a few times so I can be fairly accurate in placing my circle. And then you're going to make a little line at the edge of your circle. It doesn't matter where it is, and line up your quarter wedge with that line so that the center point is on your tick mark, and one of the other corners lines up at the edge of your circle, and make another tick mark there. Now move your quarter circle over to the new tick mark and line it up the same way, and make another tick mark further along your circle, and keep going until you get right around your circle. And if you've done things carefully, your last point should meet right up at the beginning tick mark that you made. Now the next part is to draw the lines, to draw 3 lines through the middle of your circle, lining up with your tick marks that you made, to divide your circle into 6 equal wedges. And the ruler I'm using has the English monarchs listed on the back of it. We bought it at one of the palaces in England when my daughter was little, and I only just realized why there's a list of monarchs on the back of the ruler. There's a list of rulers on the ruler. I just had to share that. Now the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to take one of the smaller circles. We're going to line up that center point again, and we're going to make some marks that will show us how to line up to center the next circle within the larger circle in the middle here. And then we'll do the same thing with the little circle, make some tick marks, at least 3 of them, that will show you how to line up your object in the middle so that we have what are called 3 concentric circles. And again, don't forget, you're doing this lightly with a pencil. These lines are not going to be part of your finished drawing. I'm doing it with a Sharpie so you can see what I'm doing, and they don't have to be beautiful. These are construction lines that will never be seen by anybody. And so in the next video, I'll show you how to take those construction lines and use them to create the finished kaleidoscope in black and white. So now we're on to the next part of the process where we're going to create our actual kaleidoscope. Now, I'm going to work on this transparent piece of paper that I'm laying on top of my construction drawing so that you can see what I'm doing, and because I don't have a way to erase my construction lines. But if you worked with a pencil to start with, you can work right on top of your construction drawing and eventually erase your pencil lines. For this part of the process, we're going to work with a permanent marker. I'm going to work within each of the wedges, and to start with, I'm going to make a small dot in the center of each wedge. If you use sort of a regular felt pen, the lines you make here may end up smudging when you go to color it. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line, and your line doesn't have to be the same as mine. Mine's a little bit curved. Yours can be straight. From that center mark that I made to one of the corners of the wedge. And then I'm going to draw a mirror image off that line from that center point to the opposite corner of the wedge. And then I'm going to repeat that all the way around in each of the 6 wedges. So you don't want to make this line so complicated that it's hard to replicate it. And I find it's easier if I turn my paper around, so I'm always drawing the same motion in the same place on the page. If I try to keep my paper still and turn my hand, I find it a lot harder to draw. So when I've got all the way around the circle, I'm going to make another mark from 2 of the points in my construction drawing, and I'm going to make this one also symmetrical within the wedge, and then I'm going to repeat this again all the way around in all 6 wedges. These lines do not have to be exact, they do not have to be precise. Pretty good is good enough. And then what do you think is going to happen next? You guessed it. I'm going to make another line, another symmetrical line, and I'm going to repeat that all the way across. This time, instead of making 2 separate lines, I'm making 1 line across. And you just keep going so on, adding more and more lines until you decide it's time to stop. Now for this next line, I'm going to use inspiration from this carved wood plaque that I have here, and I'm going to make a curvy line that's inspired by some of the lines in the plaque. And I'm sorry that this got a little bit out of frame, but when we get to the important part, You'll know when that is. It'll be in frame, I promise. So I'm going to go, as I've been doing so far, I'm going to go around the circle. Oh, there it is. Did you notice that mistake? No matter, I'm just going to keep going. As I didn't notice almost right away, but I just decided to keep going. There'll always be opportunities to fix things that don't quite go as you had planned. So I'm going to keep going till I get to the end of the circle, and you'll see when I get to the end of the circle, things don't match up again. Yeah, see, now I'm going to think about it. Now, what can I do to change that? Okay, so the curl ended up on the wrong side. So what if I go back around and I add curls to going in the opposite direction in each of these wedges, and then in each shape I'll have two lines going in two opposite directions. Let's see how that works. Now, I'm not really sure if I really like that either, but I'm not going to worry about it too much. There'll be plenty more opportunities to modify this line in other ways as I go along. And who knows, maybe I think I just messed up again there. Oh, no, I fixed it. It's okay. I caught that one in time. So now I'm going to try with a thicker marker to see what happens if I emphasize that line. So if I make a line thicker, that gives it a little bit more emphasis. It can also cover up any of those wobbly bits. So let's see what happens if I cover these lines up with a thicker line. That's a bit better. I'm not sure that it's exactly what I want, but it's not bad. We'll see. We'll keep going. I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not going to worry about this too much, although I am dithering over it a little bit and doing kind of quite a bit of work here. But that's okay, because every mark that I add adds to the complexity and the interest in this drawing. So let's see what happens here when I finish this. And the thing is, once you create enough lines, you're not going to notice any individual lines that are slightly off. Okay, now that looks okay. What am I going to do next? I'm going to decide on my next line. Well, I think I'm going to add some little curlicues. And by this point, I've got enough lines going on that I don't have to rely just on my construction lines to decide where to place my next lines. I can use some of the lines that I've drawn already to decide where to place them. So I'm making some more curlicues inside of each of these wedges here. And this is going to take a while. And some people really like doing this. They find it really relaxing and soothing. And you'll notice you only have to make a decision once, and then you just repeat it all the way around. And here I am. I'm not turning my paper this time. So I'm having to sort of change my hand position to place all of these little swirls that I'm making. And that's okay. I mean, you can do whatever works for you. If you like turning your paper, that's great. If you want to keep your paper still and move your hand around the page, that's great too. And here I am, I'm thickening up some of the other lines to give them a little bit more weight and emphasis on the page. Now you can go overboard, because if you thicken up all the lines, then nothing's emphasized. It's just everything has the same emphasis. But if you have some lines that are thicker and some that are thinner, it gives you some interesting contrast and variety. So I'm starting to like the way this looks, but I think I can always add more. You can always do more. And like I mentioned before, I'm not even really thinking about the construction lines. If you drew your construction lines in pencil, at some point you're going to want to erase them. But one thing that you want to make sure is that your marker is very, very dry before you start erasing your pencil lines. If your permanent marker is not dry, things will smudge and smear. And here you just keep going, adding more and more marks. Here I'm adding some little loops. Yep, not finished yet. I'm adding more and more and more. And like I said, you could keep doing this for as long as you like. And at this point, I'm basically just fiddling, adding a little bit more embellishment here and there. But remember, whatever you do in one of your wedges, you have to repeat that all the way around. And there's more fiddling going on. And there, what do you think? So when you look at this, do you notice all the imperfections and the flaws, or do you just see a complex, interesting, kaleidoscopic shape? Now, when you look at your own drawing, what do you see? Do you notice all the flaws, or do you just see an interesting, complex, kaleidoscopic shape? I wonder why it is that we judge our own work more harshly than we judge other people's art. Well, and that's it for this part of the process. In the next video, we will start to add color. We're going to create what's called a color wheel, and we'll talk about that more next time. Well, welcome back to part 3. In this video, we're going to add some color to our kaleidoscope, and you can use whatever coloring tools you would like. And I'm going to use, for this particular video, I'm going to use some cheap, inexpensive kids felt pens or markers, just so I can prove to you that it is possible to create beautiful artwork using very simple tools. I'm going to guide you through the creation of a color wheel, which I think is a really useful, can be a really useful artistic tool. Now I'm going to start with purple, and I've gathered up all the different shades of purple felt pen that I have here, and I'm going to use them in the different shapes that I have all within one wedge. I'm going to vary the darks and the lights. When you use just one color in an artistic work, it's called monochromatic. You can use lights and darks and slightly pinker purples or slightly redder purples and slightly bluer purples, but really the only way to create a lot of contrast is to vary the colors between light and dark. Very light and very dark will create contrast, but you'll find that a lot of the tones will start to look very similar and blend together, so it can create a nice harmonious look. If that's the look that you want in your artwork, a monochromatic color scheme is a good way to go. And I'm just about finished. Let's see, I've got a few more areas, and I'm repeating some of the colors. That's one of the principles of design, is repetition. Variety is one of them. Another principle of design. So you can use either of those depending on the look you want to achieve. If you repeat things, it tends to be harmonious. If you use a lot of variety, it can create a lot of energy and movement. Now, I did the blue wedge next, forgetting that because I'm left-handed, I've mentioned that before, if I work in a clockwise direction, I end up risking the chance that I might smudge things. So after I did the blue wedge and realized that that might be a problem all the way around the circle, I decided to go back in the opposite direction. So let's pretend that blue wedge is not colored in. So after your purple wedge, we're going to color in the red wedge next. And it doesn't matter which direction you go in. If you're right-handed, you might like to work in the clockwise direction. But beside the purple wedge, the next wedge that you're going to color in is red. Now, I know that I don't have as many varieties of red markers as purple, so this particular wedge is not going to have a lot of variety in it. But that's okay. I'm just going to use red here in this wedge. And as I was working on this, I realized that this is actually a really good way to check whether your markers are working or not. And I noticed that one of my markers has seen better days, and maybe I don't need to keep it anymore, and maybe this is time to get rid of it. Most of them seem to be in pretty good shape, given that I haven't used them for over 2 years at this point. Yeah, there's the marker that has seen better days. Now, that tip looks pretty frayed there. Now, one of the things that you can sometimes do with markers is you can pull out the tip and flip it around, and there's a brand new tip on the other side, but this one doesn't seem to come out, so I think that one's destined for the bin. Now, when I finish the red wedge, I'm going to move on to the next one. So next to the red wedge, and it doesn't matter if you went in a clockwise or counterclockwise direction. There's only one side that you can work on next to the red wedge. The next color that we're going to use is orange. And I only have 2 orange markers, so, and they don't seem to be very different from each other. So I'm going to see if I can use a yellow, one of my yellow markers to layer on top of one of the orange markers to see if I can change the tone a little bit, give it a little bit more variety, but it doesn't really seem to be doing anything on top. Let's see if it works, if it'll work better if I put the yellow down first and then color on top of that with orange, see if that'll give a different look. You never know. It's worth trying. Nobody ever discovered anything new without trying something that they've never done before that they thought might not work. And yeah, this really didn't do anything, so oh well, that one didn't work, so but that doesn't mean I'm not going to try something new again and wonder what if. And then after orange, the next color, and again, it's pretty deterministic, right next to orange, the next color we're going to do is yellow. I've got more variety, a little bit more variety in my yellow markers. And again, you can take as much time as you like. And then after yellow is green. If you want to just color each wedge with one shade, you can do that. If you want to be more elaborate and create more variety, you can do that too. So after you finish green, there should just be one wedge left on yours. And now let's go back to blue and pretend that's the last wedge. So mine looks a little bit different. Like I said, I'm backtracking a little bit here. And I find often blue is the color that you have the most variety with markers and pencil crayons and other inexpensive tools like that. Of course, if you're using paint, you can mix up any number of varieties of color and shades. And at this point, and actually at any point, I can go back in with my permanent markers and add more detail. And hold on, one more thing. I'd like to introduce one more concept, something called complementary colors. The complementary colors are the ones that are opposite each other on the color wheel. They point at each other on the color wheel. And to remind me of those, I'm going to put a little dot of the complementary color in the corner of each of my wedges. So the complementary color of purple is yellow, and if yellow is purple. Red and green, green and red. Orange and blue, blue and orange. So some other concepts that we have going on here that you can see. The color wheel is you can divide the color wheel in half. If you look at the red, orange, and yellow half, those are what we would call warm colors. And then the other half, you look at it, you've got green, blue, and purple, and those are we sometimes call those the cool colors. And there you go, there's the finished one. And in the next set of videos, we're going to do some work with different color schemes, and we'll talk about complementary colors, as well as some other ideas.